Let's talk about Maine. What's the first thing that you think of? Is it lobster? LL Bean? Acadia National Park? What about moose? If you're thinking moose, you're not wrong. This is my uncle's latest profile picture from just last week. When I tell people that I'm from Maine, the conversation typically goes like this. Oh, you're from Maine? That's so cool. Whereabouts? And I say, oh, well, what are you familiar with? And I either get a blank stare or a story about how someone's cousin's uncle's brother has a beach house that they once spent the summer at. When I tell people I'm from Maine, the town that I'm from, Lisbon, is not the image that typically comes to mind. I have never had lobster. I went to Acadia National Park once. No, the whole state is not super liberal or granola. Our governor is a Republican. The summers are beautiful and the winters are harsh. I come from a town where going to college is not the norm. There is one McDonald's and 3 gas stations. There's a pub where half the town can be found after 6 p.m. Neighbors, coaches, teachers, and there's one high school, Lisbon High School. It serves 350 students from the villages of Lisbon, Lisbon Center, and Lisbon Falls. The town of Lisbon, a bedroom town, is a place where people sleep, not where they work. The average commute time is at least 25 minutes. It's an old mill town in the midst of old farming communities. One mill now serves as low-income housing. Another mill, recently torn down, leaves behind an empty lot overlooking the river. Just 11% of those ages 25 and older in my town have a college degree. 11%. Nearly half of the town students are on free and reduced lunch. But I was not one of them. When I got to Georgetown, I had a friend tell me that she was surprised to hear that I was in the scholarship program because of my LL Bean boots. It's true. Bean boots have become somewhat synonymous as the status symbol for young, wealthy college girls. But I have my bean boots because my dad works at LL Bean in maintenance. He started there 27 years ago, part-time, and it wasn't for years that he was able to get a full-time position in the maintenance department, now facilities. 100 students walked in my high school graduation. Today, 15 of us have entered our senior year of college. Another 15 have entered parenthood. When I tell this to people at Georgetown, it shocks them. It's an older high school. Stephen King actually went there, as did both of my grandmothers. One, if she had to stay after school, would walk 7 miles home to the family farm. The other dropped out at 16 when she had her first child, my uncle. Her then husband, also a teenager at the time, came home from the Vietnam War for his birth, and 9 months later, she had twins, my mom and my aunt. By the time she was 18, she was a single, unsupported mother of 3. It's not uncommon to have multiple generations of your family in my town. It breeds very much a sense of everyone knows everyone, and I worry it also breeds a sense of complacency. For those of you that have ever played on a sports team, you're likely familiar with this photo. It's standard before a game to circle up and stretch with your team. In Lisbon, we have the idea of the Lisbon Circle. It's the notion that because we are from Lisbon, a small, working-class, less resourced community than our competitor schools, that we can't make this circle. The Lisbon Circle is instead a blob, a square. I worried that what I saw in the sentiment of the Lisbon Circle went deeper. I worried that my peers saw the community we were from and thought that we were lesser, limited, and that we couldn't set big goals. And I wanted to change this. Freshman year of high school, I went to my school board with a plan. I was going to help build a school in another community with even less educational infrastructure than my own to show the kids in my community how important education was. A rural village in coastal Ghana called Asemko. I thought that if I could pull this big goal off, I could show the students in my community that they too could set big goals. In Lisbon, it's unrare that one would travel very far, and especially internationally. So this was kind of a bit wild for freshman year me. But I worked on the goal for a year, I planned out the logistics, and I went to the school board. And when I got there, the first person to speak was not concerned about the feasibility of fundraising or the safety of international travel. His concern was, and I quote, that little girls can't lift bricks. I came back 3 years later with this photo. I can lift bricks. Lisbon was not a bad place to grow up. Aside from the occasional drug deal in the sandpit across the street from my house or the known sexual predators around the corner, my neighborhood felt safe. My friends and I would ride bikes and play manhunt in each other's backyards. I live in an older housing development with my single mom and twin brother. I actually live on the same street that my mom lived on and off of when she was growing up. To get me to eat dinner as a kid, she used to remind me of how, when she was young, to put food on the table, she had to kill chickens. Kill them, defeather them, and eat them. This story was a part of a greater narrative of her parenting. My brother and me's life would be better than hers. We lived paycheck to paycheck, but we never went without. And because of my mom's emphasis on hard work and doing well in school, I'm a model example of generational mobility. When my mom was in high school, she sought out an application to the University of Maine. But she had no one to help her fill out the form. Her mom worked all the time. Even when I was growing up, my grandmother worked cleaning buildings and houses. And when she got cancer in high school, my mom and I stepped in. When I got to Georgetown, I made friends with people that had house cleaners. I found Georgetown on a Google search. When I got my invitation to Georgetown's Community Scholars Program for students of diverse racial and socioeconomic backgrounds, I thought that someone had messed up. I had always thought of myself as average, what some might call a basic white girl. I didn't know that being first generation was an identity. Growing up, everyone that I knew would be the first person in their family to go to college if they went. So when I got to Georgetown, and it did, I became more interested. Just how first was I? I did what anyone would do. I opened up a free 30-day Ancestry.com trial and looked for answers. What I found was that many of my ancestors arrived to America in boats in the 1700s, got to Maine, and never left. Not only am I the first person in my family to go to college, along with my twin brother, I am the first to leave Lisbon, Maine. When I got my acceptance letter to Georgetown, I was dumbfounded. When I got my financial aid letter in the mail 4 months later, my mom called. I was in the car with my dad. And the call was short. She said, "Jen, I'm so sorry, but we can't do it. Georgetown costs more than our house." I didn't cry. I instead sat in the car, angry. I remember being frustrated that I had believed that the dream was attainable, that my hard work had paid off, and it was a lie. I got home, and my mom was still sitting at the kitchen table, looking at the letter. I looked over her shoulder. My mom had read the first line and been succumbed to the sticker shock of Georgetown's $70,000 a year price tag. I looked below and saw that Georgetown had given me a full ride. This time I cried. I went in the shower and I cried so loud that my mom came in. She said, "It's okay, you don't have to go." She thought I was scared. I was. When I got to the Community Scholars Program in July of 2014, I remember in my panic thinking, if only I had gotten pregnant in high school. But I didn't. I went to Georgetown. And since I've been here, I felt like I've occupied two worlds, my Maine world and my Georgetown world. At Georgetown, I've developed a great interest in higher education policy. And in learning about the inequities in our higher education system, I've become more interested in my community back home, the world I so often feel like I'm leaving behind, Lisbon. This summer, I decided to bridge my two worlds, For my senior thesis, I went home and I interviewed 15 of my high school graduating classmates to see how they're navigating this stage of life, with and without college. In part, I was inspired by the election. 51% of my town voted for Trump. He actually made a campaign stop in Lisbon, a half-mile from the high school, across the street from the McDonald's. I'm not sure that anyone I interviewed support Trump or follow politics at all, but I thought that they could nonetheless help to provide a lens into the world that so few of my peers at Georgetown seem to understand. My first interviewee, she asked that I not use her name or photo. She went to a four-year school straight out of high school. After the first year, she decided to transfer to another one. There too, she had a bad experience and she decided to come home, take some time off. For the first school, she took out loans. For the second, she paid as she went. Today, she's still paying for her loans, and she's still paying for school number 2, where she hasn't gotten credit for the classes she took because she hasn't paid. Where does that leave her? She works 40 hours a week as a waitress. She's enrolled in an online degree in medical billing. She wants to leave Maine someday, but for now is only concerned about being able to save up enough money for rent. She went to college because she thought that was the next step. She knew nothing about loans. Jordan's mom always told him he was going to go to college. His grades weren't bad, and he was really great at track and football. Jordan had his first son the August after we graduated. His second just had his first birthday. When I asked Jordan how he made his what's next decision, he said there was no decision to be made. He's worked at a beer distributor in your town ever since we graduated, and his goal is to someday be the manager. Paige was one of the smartest people in my high school graduating class. She got a near-perfect score on her math SAT, unheard of for my town, which typically scores in the bottom 20th percentile. When faced with the decision to go to college, Paige chose to go to community college. Recently, she graduated with her associate's degree, but she told me she didn't attend graduation because she was embarrassed. She said that she was ashamed. She knew she was better than community college, and she's always known that. When Paige went to school, she continued to work at the grocery store where she and I worked at growing up. Today, she doesn't regret her choice. She doesn't have any debt, and she's working now as a bank teller, hoping to go back and complete a bachelor's degree, maybe a master's. And the last interviewee I'll talk about, Justin. Justin, like Jordan, works at the beer distributor near town. He and his long-term girlfriend, Lily, live in one of those refurbished mill apartments adjacent to Jordan's. Lily, a year below, is going to school. She's 2 years in, and when she's not in class, she works full-time as a telemarketer. During our interview, she expressed a draining interest in finishing. Justin knows he's smart. He was in all of the gifted and talented classes growing up, but he never liked school. He couldn't imagine sitting in class all day and having to pay for it. Plus, he likes to work. He needs to work so that he can pay rent. While each of these stories is unique, they are not uncommon. It's funny. The point of this project was to try and gauge the ways in which my peers back home are navigating their what's next phase of life, as I'm about to be there as well. I'm about to graduate. I need a job. Recently, I tried to figure out what this consulting thing is and how I could explain it to my parents. I went to a Deloitte info session. Well, I walked in, saw all the boys in suits, got self-conscious in my business casual dress from Goodwill, and I ran home, the long way so that no one could see me. I cried. I made some progress. I interviewed with Accenture. I had never done a case interview before, so you can imagine it was awful. I left feeling flustered, and I'm not kidding, I fell face first down the Career Center stairs. I nosedived in these shoes. I ripped my only pair of dress pants, and the scab on my knee has almost healed. I'm still just kidding. It was kind of nice, though, falling. It was humbling. It felt like an omen. I was only going to case interviews because I felt like that was the Georgetown thing to do. I'm still discerning my what's next. While many of my peers back home are still figuring out how they're going to finish their college educations, if they are, others are working 40, 50, even 60 hours a week in hopes that they save up enough money soon to put a down payment on a house. I'm lucky to have the chance, the luxury of deciding, where do I want to be next year? Do I want to travel? Do I want to try business or social justice? The divide in our experiences and in our opportunities is what the Atlantic has coined the new American dream. It's the idea that today a person's 20s are about self-actualization, traveling, finding oneself, trying new jobs. Think Friends, New Girl, How I Met Your Mother. The image of people in their 20s today is that of a time of lucrative part-time jobs, expensive cities, alcohol, and casual sex. A time that sociologist Jennifer Silva refers to as attractive and realistic for many peers of mine from affluent backgrounds, like those from Georgetown, but not for people from rural, lower-class backgrounds, like those of my peers in Maine. These stories leave them feeling behind, a sense of chaos. I'm not convinced that if everyone in my community strove for Georgetown, it would be the right choice. But to live a decent life, it shouldn't have to be. In many blue-collar high schools and towns, there is the myth of the one or two students that make it out. They are the exception to the rule. The rule that the working class, the cycle of poverty, and close family roots maintains constant. For where I'm from, I fit this narrative. But I don't want to be the exception. I don't want there to be a rule.